We will now continue learning together the laws concerning brachot we make on cereal. As we learned during the first part of this year, these halachot apply to all foods prepared in the same way. So, let's begin. We'll first discuss foods made from vegetables or fruits. When it comes to cereal, this means the main ingredient is either corn or cornmeal. To review, the bracha changes from hadama to shahakol if the food is considered processed. If the vegetables, such as corn or potatoes, are the main ingredient and they are not considered processed, we make ha'adama. However, if the vegetables are considered processed, we make a shahakol. So, we still need to know what is considered processed. Well, processed generally means ground beyond recognition. So in the case of corn or potatoes, it means that they've been ground into starch or flour. Just pressing or slicing is not enough to change its bracha. So in the case of cereal, we need to find out whether it was made of corn flour and is considered processed, or if it was pressed by rollers and is considered unprocessed. Looking at the ingredient panel does not usually clarify whether the cereal is made of corn flour. Expressions such as milled corn can mean either ground or pressed corn. However, looking can help. Here we see that the flakes on the left side are bumpy and have a rough texture. This is because these flakes are made of pressed corn. Therefore, the bracha is hadama. The flakes on the right, however, are smoother and flatter. This is because they are made of corn flour, so we would say a shahakol on them. The rule would apply to popcorn as well. Popcorn is made by puffing up the entire kernel. So what's the bracha? Correct, it's hadama, because puffing the corn is not considered processing it. By contrast, Pringles are made of ground potatoes, so the bracha is shahakol. Okay, now that we have covered corn, let's discuss foods made of rice. The Shulchan Aruch teaches us hakoses es ha'orez mevarech alav borei pri adama va'achra borei nefashot. If one eats rice, he should make a borei pri adama over it and borei nefashot afterwards. Ve'im bishlo o shetechano o v'asa mimenu pat mevarech alav borei minei mezonot va'achra borei nefashot. However, if one cooked it or ground it and made bread from it, he should make a borei minei mezonot before and a borei nefashot after. V'hu shelo yehei ma'orav im davar acher ela orez levado. This applies only if no other item was mixed with the rice, but the dish was made solely from rice. V'im eirav mimeno b'tashel acher hu harov mevarech alav kiverchat oto tavshil. If one mixed the rice in some other cooked dish, however, and the other item forms the greater part of that mixture, one should make the blessing which is appropriate for that cooked item. So to review, when eating raw rice, we make hadama before and a borei nefashot after. When eating it cooked, we make a mezonot before and a borei nefashot after. Finally, when it comes to cooked or baked foods in which rice is an ingredient, it depends. If the rice is the majority ingredient, we make a mezonot before and a borei nefashot after, like we do when eating cooked rice. However, if the rice is a minority ingredient, we say the bracha of the majority ingredient and not the rice. With that, let's discuss the basic rules concerning ikar and tafel. The general rule is, if we have a food that is comprised of a mixture, we make the bracha on the ikar, the main food, and we do not make a separate bracha on the tafel, the subordinate or secondary ingredient. Very important. This does not mean that we're not saying a bracha on the tafel ingredient. Rather, we are making the bracha of the ikar, and it serves as the bracha for all the ingredients. For example, when having a bowl of cereal with milk, we make the bracha of the cereal, but that bracha applies to the milk as well. Therefore, even if the cereal is finished and we want to drink the milk afterwards that remains in the bowl, we do not have to make a new bracha. Why? Because we already made the bracha of the cereal on the cereal and the milk. So, how do we know what's considered the ikar ingredient? Well, there are three basic rules. First, If the ingredients contain one of the chameshet minei dagan, the grain will be the ikar and the bracha will be mezonot. The exception to this rule, as we learned in the first part of the shiur, is if the grain is only serving as a binding agent and is not there to make the food more filling or add taste. In such a case, the grain will be a tafel. Second, rice is the ikar only if it's the majority ingredient. Finally, when it comes to other ingredients, we follow the majority. So, for example, if you have before you a fruit salad that contains a mixture of fruits, some of which get hadama and some of which get ha'etz, you would make the bracha of the majority fruit. So now, here's the real test. What bracha do we make on Crispix? Let's think about it. One side is made of unrecognizable corn, so that side is processed and should be shahakol. The other side is made of baked rice, so that should be mezonot. The trick is, neither side is the majority, so neither can be the ikar by itself. Only foods made of 5 grains can be the ikar without being the majority. So what do? Some poskim recommend separating a piece of the cereal and making 2 separate brachot. Mezonot on the rice side and shahakol on the other side. So let's review. For foods made of vegetables, it depends. If the vegetable has been ground into flour, the bracha is shahakol. If the vegetable still has some of its original characteristics, the bracha remains ha'adama. For rice, it also depends. Raw rice is hadama. Cooked or baked is mezonot. The bracha achron in both cases is parei nefashot. And when rice is an ingredient, we say that the bracha of the majority ingredient. When it comes to ikar and tafel, well, it depends. If the food is made of the chameshet minei dagan, the 5 grains, then the grain will be the ikar, unless it's only serving as a binding agent. When it comes to rice, rice is only the ikar if it's the majority. And when it comes to other ingredients, you go by the majority. Finally, as we've learned, knowing what bracha to make on cereals depends on our knowledge of how the ingredients have been processed. It can be very difficult at times to know how the cereals are prepared. The Starcade does an amazing job tracking this information, and they keep a list on their website of the appropriate brachot for cereals. In addition, the Starcade has many other resources concerning kashrut and halacha. I strongly encourage you to visit this very valuable website. It was a pleasure learning with you today. Let's do it again soon.